By the time the first sweepers rattled their brooms through Plaza San Lucia, only two kinds of people remained beneath the garlands drooping like tired serpents: the yawning vendors who could not afford to pack up before dawn, and Valentina Arsh, the tailor who carried a pair of shears as confidently as most carried umbrellas. She moved among forgotten streamers, shattered confetti eggs, and posters announcing last night's Jubilee of Lantern. Valentina's hands, though calloused, touched each fragment of cloth with the tenderness one might offer an injured bird. She searched not for recyclables, but for reminders, scraps that still vibrated faintly with music and laughter. The city, Toramar, hosted a different festival every month. In other places, such frequency might have cheapened the magic, but here the citizens poured themselves into each celebration as though it were the final candle on the final cake. Opera Week ended, and immediately the Night of Drums began. The March of Bread rolled through Old Town in May, and by June the streets smelt of lavender for the Feast of Fragrance. Valentina had once danced at every one, but a decade ago she lost her husband, Manuel, during the Year of Two Storms. He had been a ferryman, his boat overturned when the second gale struck. While Toramar rebuilt the docks, Valentina bowed out of the revelry. Yet festivals surrounded her anyway, their echoes pushing against her grief like persistent children drawing her curtains open. She discovered her vocation by accident. 2 years after Manuel's death, she was mending trousers for the widower next door when the city dumped a mountain of ripped banners outside her building, logos still wet with dew. One crimson square bore a gold sunburst proclaiming Midsummer Milonga. Without thinking, she snipped a corner and pressed it against her cheek. Heat tingled through the fabric, the lingering warmth of 100 couples swirling under paper lanterns. She stitched that sunburst onto her neighbor's pocket. When he slipped the trousers on, his posture straightened, his habitual sigh turned into a hum. He left whistling a tango tune Valentina recognized from the previous night's parade. Thus began her clandestine ritual. At dawn, after every festival, she harvested banners and streamers the street sweepers deemed trash. She washed them in rainwater tinged with marigold petals because her abuela had taught her that petals coax memories to speak. By twilight, she sewed, a lamplight flickering over her needle like a whisper obligingly translating ghosts. Word spread quietly at first. Someone who had lost her appetite for song found herself singing scales while ironing after wearing one of Valentina's skirts. An elderly postmaster whose knees creaked climbed 2 flights without pain once he fastened a cravat embroidered with the silhouettes of flying kites. "It is the wind," he declared, tearing up. "I can feel last month's wind. It pushes me upward." People began paying her more than the garments were worth, yet she never bartered for money alone. She asked clients to bring a story, a smile, or an old photograph to pin above her work table. In exchange, she offered clothes woven with celebration. A jacket stitched from painted dragon tails of the lunar parade, gloves pieced out of the velvet backdrop from the flamenco finale, capes lined with leftover ribbon that still smelled of roasted almonds from the night fair. The city council tolerated Valentina's scavenging, half amused, until someone on the tourism board caught wind of her growing fame. Councilwoman Marta Beltran stood before the mayor holding one of Valentina's sashes. "Do you know what this is?" she demanded. "It's an unlicensed souvenir. If visitors think they can get the spirit of our festivals for the price of secondhand cloth, they won't buy the official merchandise." The mayor, a portly man whose mustache quivered like a festival streamer itself, scratched his head. "But the festivals are about joy," he protested. "And she is spreading joy, no?" "Joy is wonderful," Councilwoman Beltran said crisply, "but revenue keeps lights on." So a new ordinance appeared on the municipal board. All festival materials are property of the city and may not be removed without permit. Anyone caught collecting would face a steep fine. Valentina read the notice the morning before Toramar's grandest celebration, the Aureate procession, a river of gold banners honoring the city's founding. She felt the words like pins pressed through her fingertips. Still, she folded the bulletin and tucked it inside an unfinished waistcoat. That afternoon, a boy arrived at her shop, hair slicked like a fledgling trying to imitate a swan. "Senora Valentina, my sister sings tonight in the Aureate procession," he said, thrusting a coin purse forward. "Her nerves are tangled up. Papa says you can make her brave." Valentina glanced at the ordinance atop her sewing machine. Her chest tightened. "I can," she replied slowly, "but I've none of the golden cloth yet." The boy nodded as if expecting this. Then I'll bring you something better. He returned within the hour, carrying an old guitar strap, frayed along its edges. She used to practice until our mother called for supper, he said. Now she only practices when forced. His eyes pleaded. Could you put the music back inside? Valentina accepted the strap. It did not come from any festival, yet vibrations of lullabies and broken scales hummed inside the weary leather. Yes, she whispered. She opened a cedar chest where she stored her most precious remnants. A tassel from the first midsummer milonga she attended with Manuel, a patch of checkered cloth from the year Manuel won the regatta, a silvery scrap of the Moonlight Sonata banner, underneath which they had shared their last dance. From these she chose 2 threads, a shimmering blue of wide river water and a silver flicker like lantern light. She reinforced the frayed strap with them while singing softly under her breath. When she delivered the transformed strap, the boy's sister gasped, the tremor in my stomach, it's flying upward like bubbles. That night, she sang through the entire procession with a voice clear as a temple bell, sending ripples of applause across Plaza San Luca. But Councilwoman Beltran, seated on the dais, crossed her arms. She recognized Valentina's signature stitches along the singer's collar. Authorities found the tailor that dawn, plucking a length of discarded gold bunting from a streetlight. They confiscated her satchel and handed her a court summons. News traveled faster than pigeons. Some called the ordinance tyrannical. Others argued rules were rules. Valentina spent 3 sleepless nights in her studio, the walls pressing inward like a throat about to swallow her craft whole. If she could no longer salvage festival cloth, would the echoes also disappear? On the 4th morning, while she debated closing the shop permanently, a man entered. He looked nearly twice her height, clothes dusty from travel. In his hands, he carried a folded square, saffron and scarlet. He opened it like a map. Valentina sucked in a breath. The Dawnfire banner? She murmured. That festival had been retired 25 years earlier after a pyrotechnics mishap. Manuel had told tales of it, describing how dawn seemed to spill out of the fabric when drums thundered. Where did you find this? In my mother's trunk, the stranger replied. She said you would know what to do with it. He laid a callous palm over his chest. I'm leaving soon to work on the northern dam. The winters are long there, and the wage is longer, but I worry about forgetting this place. Valentina ran her fingers along cinders still embedded in the weave. Embers murmured inside, small but insistent. One more sunrise begging to rise. She asked for no payment. Within hours, she shaped the banner into a vest that glowed whenever lamplight struck it. The man shrugged it on. Immediately, his shoulders squared with determination. He thanked her with a voice husky as gravel, then turned toward the door. Before crossing the threshold, he halted. Others need this, he said. We can't lose it. After he left, Valentina stared at her reflection in the cracked mirror. She saw a woman mid-40, auburn streaks in hair once black and a pair of scissors dangling like wings from her belt. She inhaled. Perhaps she could not save every banner, but she could preserve what she already possessed and fight for the right to gather more. She drafted a letter to the city council requesting an audience. Rather than beg for leniency, she offered a partnership. Her garments could serve as living archives, displayed in a rotating exhibit at City Hall, concurrently promoting the festivals and driving up tourists' desire to attend them firsthand. The mayor found the idea delightful. Yet Councilwoman Beltran scoffed. Archives belong behind glass, shielded from wear and tear. Valentina stood in the council chamber beneath chandeliers shaped like fireworks. Honorable council, she said, celebrations are not preserved by locking them away. They survive when they are worn, danced, sung, shared. She unrolled a bolt of cloth, pieced from 7 festivals, each seam glowing faintly. This is the heartbeat of Toramar. Touch it. She invited them to place their hands on the fabric. The mayor complied first, then a shy clerk, then finally Beltran herself, if only to disprove whatever sorcery the tailor threatened. Through the cloth pulsed a distant echo, children shouting during the bread march, trumpets from opera week, the whoosh of kites slicing June air. Beltran's eyes widened in spite of her. She pulled her hand back hastily, yet not before the corners of her mouth twitched upward, an instinctive half-smile. You see, Valentina said, these memories ask to be carried forward. After tense deliberation, the council voted to grant her a limited permit. She could collect banners on the condition she returned 1 out of every 3 pieces to the city to be auctioned for charity. Beltran abstained, but she did not block the measure. Valentina accepted the compromise, though she worried about losing a third of her treasures. Still, better a seed planted than pulverized. She resumed her dawn scavenging with renewed vigor, accompanied now by volunteer citizens eager to help before sweepers arrived. Among them was Lucero, the nervous singer, who offered to catalog each cloth's origin. Elderly postmaster Vidal became chief courier, delivering finished garments along with handwritten stories explaining their lineage. Even the mayor's teenage daughter apprenticed after school, practicing basic stitches on bunting trimmed from the harvest hop. Yet not everyone welcomed the tailor's growing influence. An artisan guild that produced Toromar's official souvenir scarves saw its profits declining. Its leader, Don Alvarado, requested a private meeting with Valentina. He arrived wearing a silk cravat printed by his own factory, stiff as wallpaper. "Your clothes are enchanting, Signora," he began, "but so unique they threaten the collective craft. My employees fear layoffs." He leaned closer. "Sell me your method. We'll mass-produce the effect, you'll earn a fortune, and everyone keeps their jobs." Valentina imagined thousands of identical jackets, their echoes diluted until they resembled nothing more than background noise. She shook her head gently. "The magic lies in listening, Signora Maria, not manufacturing." Alvarado's eyes hardened. He left without another word. Weeks passed. The city prepared for the Whispering Equinox, a newer festival honoring Quietude Day, where music paused at sunset so wind chimes could converse with the sea. Valentina planned a collection of shawls woven from last year's translucent banners that still rang like soft bells when ruffled. 2 nights before the festival, her studio door splintered open. Vandals later traced to disgruntled employees of Alvarado ransacked shelves, slashed unfinished garments, and set fire to storage baskets. By the time neighbors doused the flames, smoke had eaten half her inventory, including the cedar chest of precious remnants. The irreplaceable tassel from her first dance with Manuel turned to ash. Valentina stood amid the wreckage, a black smudge of soot across her cheek like war paint, yet to decide if it symbolized defeat or defiance. She knelt, running trembling fingers through piles of scorched threads. A golden glimmer escaped the soot, a single unburnt strand, part of the Orient procession bunting confiscated weeks ago but returned to her as permitted surplus. She cradled it. A memory fluttered, Manuel laughing as confetti landed on his lashes. Grief rose like smoke, but around it she sensed solid pillars, friends, clients, citizens who believed in her work. Postmaster Vidal arrived at dawn carrying fresh coffee. Behind him trailed Lucero, the mayor's daughter, council staffers, and even, reluctantly, Councilwoman Beltran. They brought salvaged cloth from their own attics, table runners, costume sashes, picnic blankets patterned after bygone festivals. "It's not official banner material," Lucero apologized. Valentina smiled through watery vision. "It will sing just the same." They cleaned the shop, sanding charred beams, mending looms. Beltran secured additional permits so citizens could donate private memorabilia. When they finished, the tailor's floor looked like sunrise following nightmare darkness. Valentina organized a vigil on Equinox Eve. She asked everyone to wear at least one patch of festival cloth, new or old. In Plaza San Lucia, torches were forbidden that night to preserve the hush, yet cloths shimmered under moonlight. The crowd grew, fishermen cloaked in sailcloth from Regatta Day, bakers donning aprons streaked with cinnamon from the March of Bread, teenagers twirling pennants that once crowned the Night of Drums. Valentina stepped onto the fountain rim, wearing a patchwork coat assembled from fragments rescued from the fire. A hush settled, honoring the spirit of the festival. She raised her arms. The crowd lifted theirs, allowing the night wind to thread between sleeves, skirts, banners. A sigh rippled, and with it an overpowering collective resonance, all of Toromar's celebrations murmuring at once. Some heard lullabies, others laughter. All felt less alone. Tears glistened without shame. Even the vandals, present on the plaza's edge under watchful guard, bowed heads, as if the echo penetrated their bitterness and revealed something softer underneath. When the mayor addressed the assembly afterward, his speech was brief. "This," he said, gesturing at the diverse tapestry of humans and memories, "is the only souvenir that matters." He announced grants for artists repurposing festival leftovers, declaring such work part of Toromar's official heritage. The Artisan Guild pivoted, offering to weave base cloth for Valentina's apprentices rather than produce finished knockoffs. Don Alvarado wrote a letter of apology enclosed with a bolt of satin originally intended for souvenir scarves. Valentina accepted the satin. She believed redemption, like celebration, was meant to be worn. Months passed, seasons rotated, grief too turned like a wheel. One morning, near the anniversary of Manuel's accident, Valentina carried a bouquet of river lilies to the pier. She wore a simple dress she had sewn from scraps of every blue banner she ever handled: turquoise from the Aquatic Ballet, navy from Opera Week's Maritime Overture, cerulean from the Kite Festival. Each step across the planks echoed with cheers from distant crowds, gently cushioning her sorrow. She set the lilies afloat and, for the first time in years, did not weep. The dress's echoes formed a chorus, holding her upright. She walked home, along streets already buzzing about the upcoming Festival of Astral Comets, a brand new event promising holographic fireworks. Children dashed past, brandishing prototype pennants. Sweeping crews unloaded bins for post-celebration cleanup. They waved at Valentina, knowing she'd arrive before sunrise to claim cast-offs. She waved back, sun glinting off her scissors. Back in her studio, apprentices stitched while humming tunes they had not known yesterday but somehow remembered. Rolls of donated cloth lined shelves, sorted by festival, mood, and color. A placard by the doorway, courtesy of the City Museum, read, "Workshop of Living Echoes, enter to wear joy." A young woman stepped inside shyly. She wore hospital scrubs and carried a dull green tarp. "This covered the infirmary tent during last year's Tempest Relief Fair," she explained. "I spent endless nights under it listening to generators. I'd like something lighter to carry into my shifts." Valentina examined the tarp. It smelled of antiseptic and rainwater. Under the quiet hum their hands produced, fabric to palm, memory to needle. She heard stifled yawns, worried murmurs, and finally applause when patients recovered. She smiled. "We shall make you a cloak that rustles like gentle rain to remind you storms end," she said. The tailor set to work. Outside, hammers built stages for the Astral Comets show. Inside, Valentina's needle danced, stitching moments no calendar could contain. Threads twined past and present into garments that would one day dance through yet another dawn, then fall, forgotten upon cobblestones, only to be found again, and again, and again. For in Toromar, festivals never truly vanished. They lingered in fragments, waiting for someone like Valentina to listen. And as long as she, or those she taught, bent to gather the discarded banners, there would be clothing that sang of fireworks and bread loaves, lavender days and moonlit sonatas clothing that reminded every wearer, however bowed by grief or routine, that joy was a fabric always ready to be sewn anew.